Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Tia Lawson. This summer, more than 15 million Americans took to the streets to protest against racism and police tactics, and these protests have continued into the fall. Black Lives Matter groups and their allies have been launching these protests to express outrage at the recent police killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. The Black Lives Matter movement started in 2013 over not only police tactics, but also bigger racial and social injustices. We've been asking protesters what it's been like to be on the streets this summer.
I started going to protests kind of as soon as the riots and the protests started in Minnesota. So probably like a week or two after that, when like the protests kind of shifted to the rest of the country and bigger cities in different states were starting to like have protests of their own. My experience with the protests have been terrible, to say the least. I remember the first protest I went to, I was in the middle of the street away from other protesters. And all of a sudden this cop starts like running at me, like screaming, and I couldn't really understand what he was saying. So I just stood still because I was confused. And then all of a sudden I get yanked back by another cop by my hair. So my hair actually got pulled back by another cop in riot gear. I have experienced tear gas, unfortunately. It's not fun. And I wouldn't even say I was that close to it. And I like, just like from being on the outskirts and in the general area, I've felt it. And then I actually had a conversation with a cop after that. And he was saying most of the time it's because people throw something and they're not gonna wait to see what people throw. They're going to just react.
A recent Gallup poll shows Americans' confidence in police is at an all-time low. Activists now call for defunding the police, but there's a disagreement about what exactly defunding means. Today on Point, we'll talk about protesting in this day and age, how the protests have affected protesters' physical and mental health, if peaceful protesting is enough for the Black Lives Matter movement, and what to expect when going to a Black Lives Matter protest. Also, we'll discuss how social media has been a driving force behind these protests and encourage a younger generation to join. On Point's Taylor Lawson has more.
Thank you, Tia. And today we are here with Alex Brown, San Diego Unity Protest Coordinator, and Taya Lee, a protester. So let's start with Alex. Alex, I see that you organize protests. What made you start doing that?
I think just having the passion to do it, the resources and the platform, and just being that gateway for people who necessarily don't feel comfortable protesting or don't, have different morals and different things. Like some people's families won't allow them to, just being that outlet for them and just being someone who can connect the people to getting the news that they need, the information that they need. I don't know, it was just the passion. It was just, I felt like as a Black woman, I feel like I should have done it. I was brought the opportunity to, join the organization that I am in, and I didn't hesitate. So it was just more the passion for me and how I feel about everything going on personally. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So with the protest that you did organize, do you want to talk a little bit about that and how it went?
We had a few events, but the main protest that we did have was a protest here in San Diego, California, actually in a town or city called Santee, California. It is known to be white. It's known to have a lot of white supremacists located in that city, and it's always been one of the more racist parts of San Diego. And my organization just got together and we felt like together we needed to address the problems here in our city, and we needed to, attack the bull head on. A lot of people were actually very scared and very doubtful, and a lot of people, thought it wasn't the best idea, but for the movement, we just felt that it was something that needed to happen. And then honestly, when we did have it, it went very well. There was residents in Santee who felt like it was needed, and it was just something for San Diego to open their eyes and see that racism is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's in the next city 10 minutes away. We can't be blinded by it. We can't be scared of it.
So I know many protests surrounded by, around George Floyd or Breonna Taylor. Was there, was that happening, at your protest?
Yes. So um, our protest was definitely aimed towards George Floyd as well as Breonna Taylor and the rest of the people who got their life taken away. It was also for people of color, just the
Yes.
injusticeness, if that's a word, for people of color, Hispanics, Muslims,
Hmm.
women, even though that's not necessarily a race, but it was more generalized towards people who get oppressed and focusing on making it known that there needs to be change, there is
Yeah.
injustice, and we have to address it.
Okay. So back from when, Trayvon Martin was shot, do you think the movement has become more diverse since then?
Definitely. I think social media has a lot to do with it,
Yeah.
but especially here in San Diego, going to multiple protests, you see more non POCs there
Yeah.
who actually are really passionate and really feel like there needs to be a change. So there's definitely been a lot of diversity, more than I expected actually, especially at more of the bigger protests.
So now you said that your protests were peaceful, the one that you organized. How would you How would you say like the other protests were in San Diego?
With protests, it's a little bit different because if you just throw a protest, you kind of have to take whatever comes with it.
Yeah.
So as far as like police barricading and you know things of that nature, the first protest I went to was actually in downtown, and it was pretty violent. There was
Hmm.
rubber bullets being shot. There was tear gas being shot. It was actually a very very crazy experience. I didn't expect that for my first protest. But the one that I was a part of planning was a little bit more peaceful because
Yeah.
we knew where we were going. Again, it's a very racist city in San Diego, as well as there was families there, as well as our family. So we took the routes of planning it out and making sure that we had every everything covered as far as safety.
Yeah, so I noticed that, people deal with police brutality at these protests. And I understand the cops, they're out there every single day, outside of this, and things might get hard for them. Do you think they have a reason to be so aggressive, when it does come down to the protests? Because I know some people might throw things or do, set fires and stuff. Do you think they have a reason?
Not necessarily. I believe that the job of a policeman has been set in stone. Well, it should have been set in stone. I can't really,
Yeah.
because if we go far back, there's a different subject. But I don't think that they should have taken the links that they taken as far as like the barricades, the tear gas, the pushing people back, because it just causes more confusion. It's a push and pull thing. It's like back and forth. And
Yeah.
especially with the people, with the protesters who just want to protest. They're not really
Mm-hmm.
there for the movement. I think that police all around the world, there's different ways that they could have handled
Yep.
the protests. And I just feel like when you think of police, you're supposed to think of safety, and there has not been any safety whatsoever coming from our first responders. The first protest I went to, a man actually got shot with a rubber bullet in his head, and the ambulance were nowhere to be found. So I actually had to step in and
Yeah.
help him. So yeah.
Tay, do you have anything, chime in on that question?
I agree with what Alex said. I think that protesters should not have to worry about their safety when they're exercising their right to protest. Like, we have a right to protest. And I think, especially when we're talking about, like, in this context and what race relations are in America right now, people are angry and
Yeah.
people are tired. And of course, tempers fly. And I don't think that it's necessarily, like, protesters, shouldn't be, I don't know, like looting is a whole different section of
Mm-hmm.
of things, and I think that police should be there to protect and serve.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be worried about my safety and exercising my right as a protester because of your police presence. Like you should be there amplifying our message. You should be fighting for what we're fighting for as well. So and I feel like it's always like the people against the police,
Mm-hmm.
and that shouldn't be the case. So I think there is a line, because I know like a lot of protests do get out of hand depending on the amount of people there. If it's an official protest or unofficial, and if they coordinated with the city, the route and everything.
Yes.
But regardless of how aggressive protesters get, I truly believe that anytime there is aggression on the part of protesters, it was instigated by police.
Yeah.
Most people who are there to voice their opinion are not there to cause drama and to bring more hurt to the community that they're a part of. Usually it's instigated by the police there. So if they weren't so aggressive, I don't think this would be a problem.
One thing I did want to add on to what Taya was saying is they are supposed to be there to protect and serve. They follow the law. And isn't the First Amendment a part of the law? Like, don't we have the freedom of speech? Don't we have the freedom to express how we feel about what's going on in our surroundings, how we feel about, being Black in America? And it's just like, just seeing that fight, like initially, of course, it's always been like police brutality, but initially the problem was racism.
Yeah.
And it became police brutality and racism. And so for the people who are supposed to protect and serve us, like how are we supposed to call them when we feel when we we're in trouble? Like how are we supposed to do that? We don't even want to do that.
Do you think like the looting and the things that are happening, say like people are setting things on fire, do you think people are using Black Lives Matter, to do those kind of things? They're using that as an excuse to like loot and to cause destruction?
I think that I think often conversations around looting really only look at like the destruction of property, and I feel like it really misses the point of looting. Looting has been, a part of our history for a long time, usually at the hands of white people. So I think that when we talk about looting, we need to look at it from a place of prevention instead of treatment. Why do
Yeah.
people feel like they need to loot this store to get things, even if it's if you go beyond like getting basic necessities? Why do they feel like they need to loot this Sears or this Target to get a TV, to get these luxury items? Why do people feel like that's their only way to get those items? And that goes back into community programs not having proper funding, and a lot of issues around like economic inequality. So I think that a lot of times when we look at looting, it's just like looking at it as like, oh, these people are, unkempt, they're aggressive, they're angry, but we don't really look at it from like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
And then also, I think it completely misses the point because we focus so much on the destruction of property
Yeah.
when people's lives are on the line. Like this is, and it's kind of frustrating because it's like, in order for us to even talk about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the countless other people who have died, people feel
Yeah.
like they need to destroy property for us to have national attention for things that are the reality of Black people every day. So not all protests lead to looting. I think it's usually most people who go to protest, in my experience, are not there to loot. It's usually a
Yeah.
separate wave of people who are there, like, to loot. But I think anytime we talk about looting, we need to look at it from a matter of why do people feel the need to do that, and what do they think that you're going to, because they know that's what's going to get the attention,
Yeah.
get all the stuff. So it's like, if that's the only way that you're going to hear me, like, this is what I have
Yeah.
to do. So
And Alex, do you want to chime in?
She killed it.
Yeah, she did. Do you think that the things that, the looting, the protests, do you think that's going to create change? Do you think, we're going to see something sooner or later?
I think the change has already happened, whether or not we feel like it. I feel like the change is already in process. Especially being in this generation, I see that a lot of us are very passionate about what goes on around us.
Yes.
We want to control what goes on around us. And a lot of people are, more or less woke. So we see different races starting to understand or starting to, question, the things that they were raised on, start to question, okay, why are these people doing this?
Yeah.
Why do they feel this way? But I feel like even if change has not happened, it needs to.
Yep.
I don't want to fear being a Black woman in somewhere where I should feel safe. I don't want to fear having a Black boy. I don't want to fear that. Like, I don't want to fear raising my Black son in a country where I don't feel safe, where I feel like he may, get mistreated just because he has brown skin. So either way, change needs to happen. Change needs to happen economically, socially, culturally. And I think it starts definitely in our communities, which is one of the reasons why I did join this organization that I am in, because it starts with home first. We definitely have to address, the things that are going on here.
Yeah.
We have to address coming together as a community, providing resources, providing, education, better education for our children, because this is for our future. One of the main reasons why I am doing what I am doing is for my future children, my nieces and nephews, the future Black children being raised up in America. Like, it comes a time, there's already been this time, but this is it. This can't go on anymore. Like, it's been too long. We're deep into it.
Yeah. So, Tay, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I agree with Alex. I think a lot of change has already started to happen because of the protests and the looting, and it's been nice to see. But I think a lot of the changes that we've seen are more on a micro individual level, which are all necessary. Like, more people are having conversations, different CEOs have stepped down to make room for Black people. We've seen increase in supporting Black-owned businesses. Like, there's been a lot of positive change, but I think there has also been, at the same time, a lot of performative change that is missing the mark, and not enough change systemically, which is really what is going to cause the most change in our society. And that's going to come with, like, the abolition of these systems that we've set up, which take time. Like, we are still so early in this fight. So I've definitely seen a lot more changes than I was expecting to see. And I think, like, when you're a part of something, you never know like how the effect that something will be. But it's been really interesting to see different companies and different people step up, but there's still a lot more work to be done on a macro, like, economic, systemic level. So I hope that we continue to grow towards that.
One other thing that is very important that I want to highlight over is one of the biggest changes that can happen is with voting.
Yeah.
Want to put that out there. This is something that is serious. this is something that, some people don't think is
Yeah.
serious because they don't live the life that we do. So we as, the next generation need to vote, need to, get an education, need to be that bridge to change, on a macro level, like she said, needs to be that bridge to change economically, socially, all of the above.
What advice would you give to someone who's like, voting won't do anything? Like, I don't, it's not going to make a difference. I've seen a lot of that on social media. What would you say to that person?
Research,
Mm-hmm.
research. Definitely, take the time to dissect articles, you know, try to interpret them in a way that they can understand, try to look at the world around them and see what they would like changed, and see which people like fit in those criteria.
Yeah.
So I think definitely doing research, and doing
Yeah.
research, because I didn't take voting as seriously
Mm-hmm.
when I as serious when I first was able to vote, because I just thought, it was just voting, it's whatever. No, as the time went on, I like started to, read books and watch debates and read articles, and just knowing what's going on and why you're voting and what you're voting for.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're voting for a lot.
Yeah.
If you think about it, we're actually voting for a lot. And just doing the research again to just see what you would like to see changed in your community, in your country, in your state, in your world.
Yep. Tay, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are valid in their feelings of like, my vote won't do anything. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that feeling, but I think a lot of people who feel that way are not empowered voters because they kind of, like Alex said, may just lack the knowledge of how much their vote can change things. Because I think we kind of shape voting just around like presidential
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
much more on the
Some,
ballot
yeah.
propositions. And like you can, vote for your judges, you can vote on a city, county, state, and country level. So I think when people are empowered to vote by being bolstered up with all of the resources that they need to know to understand voting, then you'll have people looking forward to vote. But it's, voting is often, we make it, I feel like, feel so not, I don't want to say elitist, but it can be daunting to like a daunting undertaking. And like if you get your ballot and there's like all these
All
things,
these, yeah.
you don't really, especially if you aren't able to dissect the language to really understand what's on there, it can be very daunting. So I think um, in order for people to feel like their vote will matter, they have to understand, what's on the ballot. And that comes with using, the internet and using resources and talking to your peers and your community members to be able to understand what you're voting for.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it. And it's obviously different in every place. And, voter suppression is a whole nother, level of things. So I understand why people feel that way. But I feel like when people are given the resources that they need to make a conscious and informed vote, then they'll feel empowered to do so.
I think it also falls back on like the resources that we do have, and like just as a community, putting on forums or just putting out information every week, like what this prop means, what it will do. And I think people are just very fearful. I think fear
Yeah.
has a lot to do with voting. They just feel like they don't know, or they feel like if they do, someone's going to judge them because of
Mm-hmm.
like which party they voted for. But honestly, just taking out fear and us coming together as a community and educating each other instead of, pushing it on everyone. Hey, you need to vote. Okay, what am I voting for?
Yeah.
Why am I voting?
Mm-hmm.
And then coming back with the explanation. Okay, this is why you're voting. This is what you would be voting for if you were to vote. Just creating resources and pushing out fear.
So how do you feel our votes will impact, the inequality that we face here? Like, how do you feel like that will, will that change?
Inequality is not going to just disappear after this, for sure. But I think a lot of people are more willing to make racism and inequality more of a priority in their campaigns. Like not even on a presidential level, but like senators wise and everything. So I think this is more of a topic that we can really see and be able to navigate who we should support based on their values and morals, to hopefully create change in the future where we can live in a world that is more equitable for all people, but it's not gonna just all disappear after November 2nd.
I just wanted to add on back to what Taya was saying. People just see the presidential election when we have voting locally all the time. So, well, not all the time, but there is local voting, and you can start here by you selecting, certain people in your county, in your state. It could help it could help push start change. It could help that, because we just honestly, and I was a victim to it too, just thinking that it's all about the presidential election. When we have to vote for our congressman, we have to vote for our Senate, like we need to start doing our research and learning about the laws where we live and going from there.
So that is all the time that we have. Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having this platform and allowing 2 other Black women to be on this platform to have this discussion.
Of course, of course. And thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear our show rebroadcast on the radio on 88.5 FM KCSN on Sunday morning at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and on Santa Clarita Valley Television. To get more information about our show, go to CSUNTVnews.com. For producers Nikiko Burnett, Yahaira Joaquin Flores, Jeannie Rodriguez, and moderator Taylor Lawson. I'm Tia Lawson.